So we're back for part two, and you had talked about that really challenging time you'd gone through, and came out the other side with some clarity about what you wanted, and just wondered, I'm curious about the type 7 conflicts that you might have experienced around not being joyful and, being expected to be joyful. And perhaps maybe that wasn't a part of the particular
Yeah.
thing you took in, but what was true for you?
Yeah. No, it's funny because my brother Michael and I are very close. We're 20 months apart. And I remember he shook me. He was at Marquette University. He was a sophomore. And he wanted me to be there and have fun as we did in high school with all of the kids and such. And he was shaking me, not in a mean way, but just like, Rosemary, you can get through this. Come on. You got to do it. You can do it. And, you know, when you're in a clinical depression, of course, we didn't know that then in the early 70s, you can't pinch your cheek out of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
You,
know.
you are clinically, you have a biochemical thing that's going on. I remember, being in the hospital and this one lady, this isn't funny, but it's comic relief. She was sitting there and she was her leg was crossed and she would raise it real high. She didn't like just leave it crossed. She would raise it like some people cross their legs and wiggle it a little bit, but she would have this big thing that she was doing. And I was like, where am I? In the loony bin. And I went into the mirror in the bathroom in my room and I looked in the mirror and I went, snap out of it. You can get through this. You don't have to be here. It was humiliating being in a psychiatric, or it was a beautiful hospital, a psychiatric,
You
thing of the hospital, St.
know.
Mary's Hill, it was called, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But in any event, I mean, without them, I wouldn't have gotten well, probably. You can't will yourself out of this stuff.
Oh, I
So
do.
to answer
Yeah.
your question about the seven in me, the seven in me wanted to will myself out of it,
Hmm.
wanted anything but the depths. But I had what is it Persephone who goes into the depths?
There's a few of them that go there, but yeah,
I mean,
I've been there before numerous times, and there's no talking your way out of it.
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
just you really have to do the therapeutic stuff. And but in the early 70s, I mean, I couldn't talk about it like I can talk about it now. It's
Hmm.
okay. It's all supposed to, I'm not feeling sorry for myself at any way. It's all the way it's supposed to be. I truly believe that. But um, my seven, to answer your question, that thing inside of me had to go to the depths. She just had to, or she wasn't going to find her joy again.
Yeah.
That and the depths were incredibly painful. I remember being up in the third floor of the psychiatric part of the, and I was ripping up newspapers because they wanted me to get this anger out. And I loved my parents very much, but I was, I internalized all that anger toward myself because probably I was a joyful type, because probably I was
So,
fights with my parents. I was grateful in many ways, but I
mm,
I wasn't allowed to be enough of who I was.
hmm.
And so they called it an identity crisis. But I wrote about it in this book called No Mistakes
Oh,
and Change Adversity into Abundance. And
oh,
it was
cool.
my first publication, which was in 2013.
Oh, awesome.
And it really shares, it's just about the whole story about how, on a bright October day, I was called to my truth.
Yeah,
And you're called to your truth and you have to share it and get it out. And it's ultimately going to be empowering, but while you're going through it, it's hell.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
you know.
I do. I have firsthand experience. There are many dark nights of the soul. Well, and then you found your soulmate, and so
Well, then I went to college. See, I went to the college I wanted to be at, Marquette University, and that's where we got tuition free. And being a big Catholic family, you got to take those bennies, right? And I
Wow.
mean, my dad was reasonable. He said, if you know what you want to be and it's not at Marquette, I will support that and help you do that. But most of you don't know what you want to be yet. You just want to go into liberal arts or until you figure it out. So let's do this. And so I was afraid to go there because I had seen how he was, you know, kind of overpowering with my sisters and their boyfriends and stuff such. I watched a lot of that and was a little, I mean, he just was overly strict. He was
Yeah.
overly strict. He wanted, in some ways it's better to be overly strict than not have any boundaries at all. You know, people who grow up in families like that, that's not fun either. But a lot of us finally got to, I mean, we all got to him finally. And when the therapist said, you have to let her go, you have to let her go. And then he said to me, you have to let him let you go. You know, there was just too much enmeshment in our family. And
Well, that's, I was thinking, sort of the stranglehold for a seven is when they don't have the freedom to
yes,
be curious about their freedom. It's like, let's take the soul and it's,
never thought about it that way.
yeah, and it was just like you had a vice, unintentional vice grip around that kind of expressiveness and curiosity and, ability to change directions when you felt it most important. So
So
it's an,
that's when you know how strong you are. See, when you have to make a big decision, the therapist taught me, like where do you want to go to college? What do you want to be in your life? Um, because I said I don't understand this in one level because I've worked since I've been 15. My mom's a farm girl. I'm a good Midwesterner, hardworking kid with a lot of love in their family. Like I kind of didn't get it. And then
sure, sure.
he made me get it by saying, did you want to do those things that
Mm-hmm.
you were required to do? And I said, not all of them. And he said, therein lies the difference, right? If
Yeah,
you want to make all those decisions, I didn't have enough practice making good decisions for myself or poor ones because they
yeah,
were made for me. So by the time I had to make the decision about the big, I felt small at a big time in my life.
yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
Hmm.
And so when you feel small at a big time in your life, it doesn't work. Not everybody falls apart, but
Hmm.
I did. But like Pima Chodron's book, When Things Fall Away, I became so much stronger.
Yeah.
So then I ended up marrying a Jewish guy who I just never knew any Jews growing up. I went to Catholic grade school, high school, college, and but I came to find out back in my grandma's history there is Judaism, and you know it just watered out through the family line. So I probably am soulmates with Dale from many lifetimes. I sort of think that sometimes.
Hmm.
But in any event, I met him, and we had a beautiful family. And before I met him, I found a good career that I majored in speech and something way more creative, which I'm much better in than the sciences. And my life came to be, really beautiful. And even in college, lots of boyfriends, lots of fun, lots of heartbreak too. But all the normal stuff that you go through in college, and then a good job, meet the love of my life, have 4 kids, reach our dreams. Now we're, in he's retired. I still work with the Enneagram and my clients and my workshops. I've been working at it for 20 years. So I came home. I changed careers from human resources midlife and human resources and corporate recruiting, mostly corporate recruiting. I got out of HR and got into recruiting, but I came home. Dale and I had done these discovery weekends for the engaged, and we really liked it because we wanted a strong marriage. It was like marriage encounter for the engaged. And we did it for about 25 years. But in the first, I don't know when it would have been, maybe by, let's see, Claire would have been about 11 when Caitlin was born. So we had been doing this for 15 years. And this woman said to me, the way I got into the Enneagram is she said, I think you'd really like this program, the spiritual direction program that we've got. And So I did it for 2 years. It was leading small groups. And then at the end of it, these guys waltz in from Loyola, not Jerry Wagner, but he trained me, but these other guys waltz in and they go, you have X amount of credits towards a Master of Arts in Pastoral Studies. And I was like, well, that's great. I'm never going to do that. Oh, I think I was pregnant with Caitlin. That's what it was. And then they gave us a 5-year window. And at the end, it was now Caitlin's 3 going to preschool. And I go, I want to do that program. I want to do it. It was like complete certainty. And in the middle of that program, one day, after I had taken Jerry Wagner's program and gotten certified and everything, I still wasn't really sure what I was to do. And I just asked God, I'm just damaged goods like everybody. I go like, how can I do this sacred work? And I heard this, Michael, not audibly, because obviously God knew I had a breakthrough and didn't want to do that to me. But I heard it in every cell of my body, I will put the word, it's a weird phrase too, but it might be biblical, but I never heard it. I said, how can I do this sacred work when I'm just damaged goods like everybody else? And he said, or the voice said, I will put the words inside your mouth. And I've never looked back. That was in 2002.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I've taken all of Jerry's things. I was down at Loyola for all of the, weekend things that we had. And I saw Don and, Russ many times. And I'm surprised I never saw you throughout the years. Did you ever come to Loyola?
Yes, myself and Linda, we did an inner critic workshop there with Jerry. But just I want to reference some of the sort of patterns of the 7 as you were speaking and talking about your life events. A question kind of flashed across around, what was your relationship with freedom and the need for spontaneity in your life, and how did that affect your journey in terms of your work or with your family? Because sometimes 7s will struggle with, anything that has kind of a boundary on them, including marriage can be kind of like, if I feel it really deeply, then it's not a problem. But I wonder how you dealt with the issue of freedom and having enough freedom or not enough freedom. And certainly your childhood reflected what it was like to not have enough freedom. And I wonder how that's manifested through your adult years.
It's such a good question. What a good, deep question. I'm sure it has affected me. Though with all the therapy, that I didn't just stop therapy after that. I had therapy all throughout my early motherhood, and it was because I wanted to.
Yeah.
Dale and I sadly had lost a baby in the middle of a pregnancy due to placenta previa, and that was the second fall. So if we have, look at Jesus's life and think about, 3 falls. The first one was 18 in the hospital as a college freshman. The second one is losing a baby, and then and I was in great pain and great pain because of that the low side of 1 that stress brings out. But also sometimes, right, the high side comes out because it depends if it's house on fire stress, and that was house on fire stress, and so it did bring out the best in me too. And so I had this ambivalence thing going on, and I went back, into therapy again. So I have learned, to answer your question, to like limits. It's taken me, it took me probably those kinds of intensely dark times in my life. And I think though that they are probably spiritual cohorts with me, both that baby in heaven and my old psyche. In some way are spiritual cohorts with me. Maybe I had a spiritual contract with them, as Carolyn Mace teaches about. I don't really know for sure. Well, yes, I do. I believe that. So to answer your question, I do like limits. I don't, when I took Jerry's test I was in '01, I was kind of amazed, to be honest, but I was resourceful in every category. But
Mm-hmm.
because I did all that inner work is why I was resourceful, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not that I don't have a lot of work to do for the rest of my life, just like everybody else. I sure do. I
Yeah.
have tons of work, but I have done a certain amount of work. I am
Mm-hmm.
not. I'm not somebody who is so wounded. I'm a wounded healer, but I'm way more healed than wounded.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Well,
you, like you.
yeah. Yeah. So, when you think about your so far experience of being a seven, what would you say are the high points of what you like about your sevenish patterns, and what for you today are the challenging aspects of anything come to mind in either one of those categories?
Well, the whole election was very difficult for me because I really felt the motivation in many ways for a woman to not just a woman, but a competent
Mm,
woman who made me feel protected and safe.
yeah.
I just so badly want to see what that could do for our nation, and and yet it's not the time. And so
Mm,
that's okay. It's okay. It's not the time. But that would be a current thing that's happened that I've on both sides of your question. I've had to grieve, but my mental and emotional health is too important to me, and I'm not going to get on the bandwagon of the internet. I want those people, some of them, to go and make a therapy session instead of poisoning the internet with all their vitriol. We've had enough vitriol and stuff for 6 months. I can't do it anymore. I don't want it, and I don't want to. I want to turn the page, as she said, in a way that is going to help me believe that Donald Trump will do something. He'll do something right, and and maybe he'll do many things that I don't care about, but that is I don't care for. But that is our democracy, right? We take turns in leadership,
mm-hmm.
so we have to move on. And that would be partly my sevenish saying, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, move on, and don't get overly caught up in this pain.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a less healthy way is if one of my friends wants to pour out her heart and soul to me and she's done it 4 times, that I say I can't take it anymore. Maybe that would be insensitive of me. But I feel that's a very current example to give you.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And so when you think about your life within this context of a psyche that's a sevenish in orientation, along with all of its permeations, what would you anything come to mind for you in terms of what you might tell a teenager who's a type seven, and they're type sevens, sometimes have a tendency to go in too many directions at once. I want to
Scattered.
do it all, and it's hard for me to narrow down, or I want to do four things at the same time. It's possible I can do it, and some sevens can do four things at once. Or that whole pattern of, if I start to feel suffering, I bolt in the other direction. I have got sevens in my life who have a menu that they can pull out at any moment of the 15 things they could do today that would be awesome, in lieu of feeling the suffering that just happened over here in my life, and they can just go there. So, a teenager who's, learning about this whole space, anything that would have been helpful, for you, or that in hindsight, you've had this journey of going into the depths, and, the good news was that as it was for myself too, I didn't go into the depths because I thought it would be a great idea. It was like, spirit grabbed me and said, now we're going into the depths.
That's right. We don't get to choose necessarily. Maybe we do. Maybe in
Maybe,
our
but it sure
maybe
didn't
with
feel
God,
that way.
work it out and say you're gonna do this and you're gonna get through it and you're gonna come through with flying colors. Oh, I don't know. I think I would tell a young person who is a seven to enjoy and to know that Jesus if they're Christian, for example, wanted us, think of the smiling Jesus, the one with the children.
Hmm.
God wants us to be abundant. God wants us to be, I mean,
Hmm.
I would share the story when my husband was laid off and we had 4 kids, and I would say the affirmation, we are perfectly capable of participating in God's abundance. I said that every time I thought of it all day, and he got an unbelievable job through my little recruiting service that changed our whole life, turned our life around, allowed us to have not only a home, but a cottage, and put 4 kids through beautiful colleges and more. And I'm grateful for
Hmm.
all of that.
Yeah.
So I would tell them, hold that joy. It is your birthright.
Hmm.
It is powerful.
Hmm.
And don't hold it to a fault, because if you hold it to a fault, it's not good. Any extreme runs into its opposite. So we need to um, notice when we are holding it to a fault. Not only notice it, but get a hold of ourselves, our essence. And I would try to explain to them in a simpler way than you do. Although I did teach the Enneagram to seniors at Loyola Academy,
Hmm.
but I would not go into the whole a technical part of the high side of five. But I would say, when you are in your joy, nobody can take that away from you, and it is a beautiful thing. And you can um, add humility to that joy. You can say, "What do I know? Um, I'm just a speck." You can
Hmm.
say beautiful things to yourself and move yourself forward through pain without denying it. You've got to
Hmm.
understand the limit and
Hmm.
really accept and love the limit for what it is trying to teach you. And it's okay if you move through things quickly. Just make sure you're not spiritualizing. I would tell them a little bit about what that is, or spiritual bypassing. Got to be real, got to be grounded, got to be sensitive. And and don't lose your joy. It's
Yeah.
yours. You get to
Yeah.
have it,
Yeah.
and you get to spread it. And
Hmm.
how lucky you are in this lifetime to have that. You might not be your mission next time. I believe we'll probably come back, and so
Hmm.
make the most of it.
Okay. Well, let me go to another sort of interesting area, which is the conversation around stillness. And, often when we teach about the seven and people talk, sevens will talk about their relationship with learning to become still and abide in the stillness, that there's kind of layers that they have to go through before they get comfortable with it. It's like this sense that if things aren't up and moving, then I'm going in the opposite direction of pain and suffering, or equally as bad, boredom. If I start to feel a whiff of boredom, sevens will say, I'm just up and out, and I can handle that because no boredom's going to trap me. So there's this story that gets told, which is for sevens learning to abide in the stillness and actually develop a relationship with quiet mind is a big deal for sevens, because of all the types, I think the seven has the fastest moving. I think of a hummingbird mind.
Yes, that
It's
is
just,
such a good image.
it's just
That is,
boom, 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 and it's fast. It's quick. It picks stuff up, and can incorporate things and bring them. It's like watching Robin Williams as he would integrate his seven voices coming through him as he's talking to Johnny Carson and whoever else it is. So I wondered what your relationship with stillness has been in the course of your lifetime.
well, okay, here's a little thing I have on my office wall that says, "Rest is a beautiful place to build from. Perfection is the enemy of the good. I love you and I love me. We are loved. Life's path is for the brave and faithful." I talk to myself a lot. I like stillness, but it has taken me probably until I came out of that hospital when I was, it was 3 months. So at 18, I had my first taste of loving it. then with other therapy, I'd go into therapy and I'd say, why am I working on this same, pardon my French, shit again? And and the therapist would say, because you depleted yourself again, and so if I were to say to you that I have, Michael, I got stillness wrapped up in the bag, big time, I'd be lying. It's a process that I'm going to work on till I die. However, I have had beautiful layers of loving this, learning to love the stillness.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I hear things. I've been taking a lot of intuitive. I was certified by Sonia Choquette too in
Hmm.
intuition,
Yeah.
in intuitive training. So you can't, well, it's not that you can't get an intuition when you're rushing around. You can, but I don't trust those as much as I trust the ones when I'm quiet, So I
Hmm.
I like to be quiet. I like quiet, but maybe it took me half my life to get there.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
now, as I'm in the early grandma part of my life, um, I'm better at it. That's a fair and true answer to your question.
Awesome. Okay. And in your journey as a beloved seven, have other ways that the seven gets misunderstood or misinterpreted that you're aware of that you could maybe even talk about in terms of helping people understand the soul of the seven a little easier? Because I know I've got the sevens in my life. One of the things that challenges people around them is that they get too adrenalized and kind of
Yeah,
like there's the hummingbird and and then when they're in that space, they often don't know they're in it. They're just having a ball. This is like great. I love
they are.
this hummingbird thing. It's just if you can't keep up, I don't know what to do with you. But I wondered if and sometimes they get there can be, the negative take on the seven, which is inaccurate, is this idea that there's a shallowness. And of course, I always say, in every type, as they go down the levels, we all get shallow in our own way, meaning unreal. So I just wondered if you had anything you would like to share about, understanding the seven in a more compassionate way that maybe isn't done as often as it could.
That's a lovely way to grow, to ask that question. Lovely way to grow, in your own relationships with seven and even your little grandson. I think that a great way for, it's kind of a universal answer, but it's when we accept the person sunny and shadow side, right? So for a nine, my husband, I accept that, dialing down thing that he does, and that's like kind of can make me a little crazy, but I but I love the kindness, the compassion, um, the nuance, the attention to nuance, the calm, all these beautiful things that the peaceful mediator gives. And so I would say when we accept someone with their sunny and shadow side, with their passion, you gotta, when you're with a seven, you gotta just think about it like, you know, they got a little motor that's running. I might want to be in the canoe, but they want to be in the motorboat, you know.
That's a good
So,
way.
I gotta either I gotta get my canoe going a little faster, or I gotta ask them kindly, could we have could we do the motorboat, but could we put it on low, you know? Just so I can keep up with you and just own it. Like I'm having a hard time keeping up with you. It's not
Yeah,
like you're
yeah.
criticizing them,
Hmm.
You may be on to, finding the you can slice bread, but so don't make it sound, I think, because if you make it sound like a criticism, first of all, then obviously nobody likes that. But sevens will go to the low side of one and try to get, they'll be, I missed that opportunity. I missed that, they beat themselves up then,
Yeah.
overly critical. Well, I think if I was a seven, try to do what I do with all types is try to call forth what they look like when they are centered,
Hmm.
and what they look like and what their gifts are. And then what that looks like for a seven is the big picture, right? The highest side of five flooding into them, that
Mhm.
humility and that objectivity and that distancing and that all that beautiful stuff that does slow down
Hmm.
our brain.
Mhm.
It does slow us down. It makes us feel held. I'm held when I'm in my five, high five, I don't
Mm.
have to run. I don't have to race. And I just am okay, just how I am.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, so let's just say you're having one of those hummingbird days, and you're
That
racing.
image, because it's a hummingbird is kind of pretty and sweet.
Yeah, I love hummingbirds. They're just, and they're beautiful
Right.
and mobile, but what are the kinds of things that help you become aware of that? And I ask that in light of one of my best friends is a seven. When he's really going, I will suddenly say, Eric, your words are too fast for my mind. Can you just slow it down just a little bit? Because you're like lightning and I'm like clay sitting on the ground. But
Oh,
and he will stop and and go, oh, thank you. I remember, Michael, that you said try to talk 50% of the time when you visit with somebody, and I'm up to 15%, so I'm improving. And I'm saying, awesome. So, but I wondered if there's any sort of things you invite your husband to say or kids to, if you get, out there in the wind and flying fast.
well, right, and it's important. I'm a Libra, and I like balance. So I don't like it when it's one-sided, whether it's me or somebody else, to be
So
honest.
that balances you, it sounds like.
It helps me to do that. And I like when somebody says, "Oh, I don't really care. What's the difference?" Which are nine-isms, whatever, whatever. I'll say, I really want to know though what you think and what
Yeah.
you feel. I know that you are dialed down, and it helps you. Like for example, the other night Dale did not want to, or the other day didn't want to listen to Kamala's concession speech.
Hmm.
I said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm confused. We both voted for her. Don't you need any closure or anything?" And he's like, "No, I don't. I don't want to deal with all that." He doesn't want, so he does it his way, that way, and I respect
Mm.
it. And so there are lots of different ways after 43 years of marriage that I have learned.
Well, at some point I would love to hear about your nine-isms, but yeah. So that said, is there anything else you'd like to share before we close this lovely conversation?
Just a wonderful person. I want you to know that I think that about you.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I'm glad you're in the ECG family with me. And that's Enneagram Collaborative Global, our little area of common interest. And is it okay to show anybody my book?
Yeah, please do.
Oh, okay. Well, so this is the book that I talked with you about, No Mistakes: How You Can Change Adversity into Abundance,
Yeah.
which was published by Hierophant, which is the story of the clinical depression as a college freshman, and my gains to even greater health. And then this is the book I wrote, Who You Are Meant to Be, The Enneagram Effect. I've got
Beautiful.
about 10 other inspirational books, including, so if you Googled Rosemary Hurwitz and you feel like you'd like to, then I'd be honored. And there's some like, one is called Inspirations, one is When Angels Speak, one is about um, doggies and kitties,
Oh,
heaven
cool.
sent, and experiences of amazing animals. And one is called, that I think is really good for this time of our life, The Courageous Heart.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, finding strength in difficult times. So I've been, these are all like anthologies. This is the only one that I've written by myself.
Yeah, beautiful.
But my
Beautiful.
next one, I think I want to write about blending because my husband is Jewish and I was raised Catholic. I'm um, a reformed kind of Catholic, I think, sort of now though. But we, I have a really, I feel a cool story to tell about 40 years of interfaith marriage. And so I wanted to write a book called Blending. So that might be next.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that and for sharing your journey and your path. It really was delightful to get to know you more closely. So, just to want to extend thanks and much love to you. And when I get this finished up, I'll send you it's a two-parter. And yeah, so thanks again for being with
Thank
me.
you. And then can we switch books? If I send you one of these, will you send me one of yours?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay,
we'll do it.
my address will be on the back. I mean on the thing, and then you can just go from there. How's that?
That is awesome. Sounds great. So I will shut this down and just,
Thank you so much, and be well, and enjoy the rest of autumn. Happy Thanksgiving.
yeah, you too. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye, dear.
Hmm.